Royal weddings are never just weddings. They are global spectacles that blend fairy tales, politics, tradition, and unimaginable wealth into a single, unforgettable moment. The second a royal engagement is announced, the world becomes obsessed. People want to know everything: the dress, the venue, the jewels, the guest list, and most of all, the shocking price tag behind the celebration. These events are not simply private ceremonies. They are carefully staged symbols of power, legacy, and national identity. And some of them cost more money than most people could even imagine. This countdown explores some of the most expensive royal weddings in modern history, where millions were spent transforming cities into stages for history itself. But behind every extravagant ceremony is a deeper story about love, duty, sacrifice, and the changing face of monarchy. One of the most emotional royal weddings came from Norway in 2001, when Crown Prince Haakon married Mette-Marit Hoiby. Unlike traditional royal brides, Mette-Marit came from an ordinary background and was already a single mother. Her past became the subject of intense media criticism, and many questioned whether she belonged in the royal family at all. But before the wedding, she did something remarkable. She publicly addressed her past with honesty and vulnerability, asking the Norwegian people for understanding instead of pretending to be perfect.
That honesty changed everything. By the time the wedding took place at Oslo Cathedral, public opinion had shifted dramatically. Thousands lined the streets in celebration as the royal family embraced a woman who represented modern Norway more than ancient royal tradition. The ceremony itself was elegant but understated, perfectly matching Norway's culture. Mette-Marit wore a beautiful ivory gown and a historic royal tiara, while her young son, walking beside her, became one of the wedding's most touching images. The event reportedly cost between $10 and $12 million, much of it spent on security, public celebrations, and hosting royals from across Europe. But what truly made the wedding historic was not the money. It was the message. Norway showed the world that love and honesty mattered more than aristocratic bloodlines. A decade later, Monaco delivered one of the most glamorous royal weddings of the modern era, when Prince Albert II married Charlene Wittstock in 2011. Monaco may be one of the world's smallest countries, but it has built its identity around luxury, glamour, and royal mystique ever since Grace Kelly transformed the principality in the 1950s. So when Prince Albert finally married after years of international attention, expectations were enormous. Charlene, a former Olympic swimmer from South Africa, became the center of a wedding weekend that looked like something out of a movie. There were two separate ceremonies: a civil wedding inside the lavish throne room of the palace and a grand religious ceremony in the palace courtyard overlooking the Mediterranean. The entire setting was filled with towering floral displays, royalty from across Europe, celebrities, and international dignitaries.
Charlene wore multiple Chanel gowns during the celebrations, including a breathtaking ivory wedding dress embroidered with tens of thousands of crystals and pearls. Every detail reflected Monaco's obsession with elegance and perfection. The event reportedly cost between $12 and $15 million. But for Monaco, the wedding was more than a ceremony. It was a global advertisement for the principality itself, a reminder that Monaco's greatest export has always been glamour. Sweden also proved that modern royal weddings could balance luxury with emotional warmth. In 2010, Crown Princess Victoria married Daniel Westling, her former personal trainer. At first, many people questioned the relationship because Daniel came from an ordinary background and had no aristocratic connections. But over time, the Swedish public grew to admire him for his humility and calm confidence. Their wedding at Stockholm Cathedral became one of the most beloved royal events in recent European history. Victoria's gown was elegant and timeless, and the emotional moments between the couple made the ceremony feel deeply human, despite the royal grandeur surrounding it. The streets of Stockholm filled with hundreds of thousands of cheering spectators,
and the entire country treated the wedding like a national celebration. The event reportedly cost between $17 and $22 million, with much of the expense dedicated to public festivities, security, and hosting royal guests from around the world. But Sweden's message was clear. A future queen could marry for love, even if her chosen partner came from outside the traditional royal world.
Another unforgettable love story came from Denmark in 2004, when Crown Prince Frederik married Mary Donaldson, an Australian marketing executive he met at a pub during the Sydney Olympics. At the time, Mary had no idea she was speaking to the future king of Denmark. What began as an ordinary conversation turned into one of the greatest modern royal romances. Their relationship faced enormous challenges. Mary had to move across the world, learn Danish, adapt to royal life, and prepare herself for a future she never imagined. By the time they married in Copenhagen Cathedral, Denmark had already fallen in love with her. The wedding was a spectacular celebration, filled with flowers, historic traditions, royal guests, and huge public crowds lining the streets of Copenhagen. Mary's gown featured a massive train and delicate embroidery that reflected both Danish and Australian symbolism. The ceremony and celebrations reportedly cost between $25 and $30 million, but the investment gave Denmark something priceless, a future queen who would become one of the most admired royals of her generation. Then came the royal wedding that truly stopped the world, Prince William and Catherine Middleton in 2011. This was not simply a wedding. It was a global cultural event, watched by nearly 2 billion people. After years of uncertainty surrounding the British monarchy following Princess Diana's death, the marriage of William and Kate felt like the beginning of a new chapter.
Westminster Abbey became the center of the world that morning. The ancient church, filled with history and symbolism, hosted a ceremony that balanced royal tradition with warmth and humanity. Catherine's Alexander McQueen dress instantly became iconic, while the floral arrangements transformed the abbey into what looked like an enchanted forest. Outside, hundreds of thousands filled the streets of London, waving flags and celebrating together. For many people, it felt like a moment of happiness during difficult times, following the global financial crisis. The wedding reportedly cost around $34 million, much of it spent on security and organizing an event of unprecedented global attention. But the real significance of the wedding went beyond money. Kate Middleton represented something important to the monarchy, a modern princess chosen not for aristocratic lineage, but for her character, intelligence, and stability. The wedding helped restore public faith in the royal family and created one of the defining cultural moments of the 21st century. One of the most visually extraordinary weddings on the list took place in Japan in 1993, when Crown Prince Naruhito married Masako Owada. Unlike the Western royal weddings filled with carriages and cathedral ceremonies, this wedding followed ancient Japanese imperial traditions that stretched back more than 1,000 years. Masako herself was remarkable, a Harvard-educated diplomat fluent in multiple languages, who initially hesitated to join the imperial family because she understood the intense pressure and restrictions that came with the role. Prince Naruhito reportedly spent years convincing her to marry him, promising to protect her throughout her new life.
The ceremony took place at the Imperial Palace in Tokyo and followed strict Shinto rituals rarely seen by the outside world. Masako wore the traditional 12-layered imperial court garment, a breathtaking silk outfit weighing nearly 44 pounds. Every detail reflected centuries of Japanese history and ceremony. The wedding reportedly cost around $40 million due to the scale of the preparations, security, ceremonial traditions, and public celebrations. But behind the beauty of the event was a more emotional story about sacrifice and duty. Masako's transition from independent diplomat to imperial consort would later become one of the most discussed royal struggles in modern history. What connects all these weddings is not just wealth or spectacle. It's the way royal weddings become mirrors, reflecting the societies around them. Some symbolized modernization, some represented tradition, some became national celebrations of love, while others carried enormous emotional and political expectations. But in every case, the weddings became larger than the couples themselves. They turned into moments where entire nations, and sometimes the entire world, paused to believe in something extraordinary for just one day.